Okay, I'll try again. We are human beings which are really spiritual beings, only in the sense that if you want to put it very basically, this is how I would put it anyway, but I could be wrong, and I know I'm leaving out a lot. Human beings are non-technical beings. They are natural. Even though some people might differ on that. There again, I always say that I am not at a level or at a intellectual or spiritual level. I think the two are the same, except that if you are only intellectual and not spiritual, you will still be at a lower level. That's just how I now think things are, even though I do not experience this myself. But I see it, I think it to be so, and so I keep on that idea, even if evidence to the contrary is presented to me. So so it leaves it open to criticism if anyone's listening that might disagree on certain things. And like, it is only what you think that counts anyway. Each person, no matter how technical or spiritual or whatever they are, is entitled to make their own decision. And that's what this reality, to some extent, is about, and always has been, I now realise myself, because it's all the wrong decisions that accumulate to bring you to this point, or to my point in life, shall we say. And each person, it will be different. But, of course I could twist it round, and I'm going to deviate once again. I do not know why I cannot stay on track. But I'm going to deviate and say that is assuming that what I do think about why things have come about, why a reality becomes very negative. Now, I think that my reality has become more and more negative as time has went on. And also, I would acknowledge that I have made very many negative decisions through my life, so that makes sense. But I, do also say, though, that now that I also think that, that I live in a matrix that is not just a system of a society that kind of, because you could talk about it, what I would say, superficially almost, to where you say, of course we have a society, of course we have a system of control in many areas to keep things functioning and to keep things safe and to keep things, as best as what we can. Of course, this is all a matter of opinion. And obviously, if you've listened to my videos, and provided I've made sense and have got them across reasonably well, which most of the time I actually don't, which is why I get frustrated too, even though I'm now aware that it is not that important, in the sense that most of the people that listen are not like children. Because I think that, like I said before, originally the videos I made them because I thought that everyone was in the dark as I was. I didn't think they were foolish. It's just, like I say, it's just that if you live in a world, not even a world, because most people don't really live in the world. Most people live to, depending on how far you travel, I suppose. I have not travelled at all. So I've been stuck in this place called Sydney. Now, so that means that you're your world or is that area, and it could be quite a small area if you don't cut. And even if you travel, you're still not, you're only exposed to what the matrix shows you or allows you to see or wants you to see. That's assuming that you think it's a matrix, and it is a matrix. But it's more a question of how extensive is the matrix? Like, is it just that you have to drive your car on one side of the road, not back like 100 years ago where you had the horse and cart and you could probably go all over the place? Is it just that? Is it things like that? No, it's not things like that. Of course, that's the surface of it. That is the surface of the matrix. But the matrix is much more complicated than that, and much more intellectual than that, much more psychological than that, much more deep than that, because it has a purpose. Because it is not just about keeping a clean, safe, controlled environment for human beings to live in, and not just about making a bit of money, not even about that, not even about power at the level that we see it, because it is what is behind the curtain that controls the matrix. But as I've said before, even though it's what's behind the curtain that controls the matrix, even if what you see as the controlling force of the matrix, in other words, like whatever takes up, because the human being is the only life force in the matrix and the main center of the matrix, because of the frequency and vibration and the ability to turn thinking, thoughts, emotions, ideas into reality. Therefore, what the real human beings see in the reality, what takes up their interest, what takes up their time, what takes over their mind, that is the power of the matrix. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's taking a human being's attention, that is the purpose of the matrix, put simply. And yes, I'm talking about individual humans, because in my fantasy way of looking at this Earth matrix now, the individual human is of a lot more importance to the matrix, as it should be to itself, but that's another thing that I will try to touch on while my mind is still on it. Yeah, because you see, it is all about the human being. The matrix swings around a human being because it is the center and the source and the unintentional power of the matrix. It is the life force of the matrix. But also, that's just because that was the original reality, the original idea, and because we're still spiritual human beings, because all human beings are spiritual beings. That's just putting names onto it, but it just means that they are at a different level to the technological beings that run the matrix, that control the matrix, that operate the matrix, that have full dominion over the matrix, because it is their home now. It's not our home. Because, like I say, if it was my home, I would have created a better reality for myself. But that's because I'm creating, but I'm really creating for the matrix most of the time. because the Matrix utilizes my thinking, my emotions, and my feelings, and creates situations to where it can then transform my reality into something different. And all I'm trying to say is that I have lost control of my reality. And you'd say, well, humans never had control of their reality to the extent you're saying. Well, I'm saying, yes, we do, we should, and we probably once did, but it may have been such a long, long time ago that we wouldn't remember it, because as time changes, you adapt to a different reality. You adapt to what you think you are. This is the point. I will try to get onto this and get on track and try to make some sense of this, because it's hard to put it. I'm not very good at putting it. I kind of get it, but I don't put it across well. You see, and I hope that you've listened to some other videos, because if there's anyone new listening, it would sound even more ridiculous, because, as I say, if you're only looking at one piece, you have to have all the at least a certain amount of pieces for it to even make sense. But either way, what we do have in this reality, talking about the difference between the human beings, and this is why human beings don't function normally. You know, we're at the lowest level that we can possibly be as a human being. I know I am. And some might not be quite as low. But I would doubt that anyone would be at the top, but I don't know, because I only know what is around me, and, you know, that's really all I know. And so I wouldn't know if there are some really advanced humans in the Matrix, or, you know, now. I mean, really advanced, you know, like to where their mind, body, and spirit is all combined to where they can just create what they want, and you know, and are always at a content level, and are not bothered by any negativity at all. And, you know, that they are like, you know, but and the Matrix, and the Matrix God entity. I must relax here, because otherwise I'm getting too confused and excited by the Matrix God entity and its minions, disciples, followers, worshippers, children, probably looked upon as children by the Matrix God in a way, maybe not. But then again, remember, the Matrix God and this whole earth, it exposes itself to me. This is how I see it, because it exposes itself to me, as it does to everyone, but it's just a matter of, but of course, if you don't think that the most prominent people in this world are of a Matrix God entity's you don't think that the most prominent people in this world that you see, that you might even be aware of, you don't see those people as subservient, I think that's probably the right word, to a particular God. Some may, but I wasn't aware of it. But either way, you know, that you also, you don't understand, and even I cannot answer this. You know, if the Matrix God sees its children or its servants or its followers or its disciples, because, you know, all those words are different. They all have slightly different connotations, don't they? Like, how would you treat your children? You would probably place your children above a servant, although you might revere your servant. If you had a really old butler or something, you might have quite the loyalty that that person has given you, might make you hold them in high esteem or regard, if you follow me. But also, I suppose the point to be said here too is we are dealing here, or they are dealing really us in a way. It would be more accurate, to be quite honest, but you are confronted with a being that that may see its children even differently to how you or I or someone else would see children, because also the world now sees, has a different family unit, different things like this. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is, like, my parents might have treated me different to how other parents treat their children, etc. So what is acceptable or what is normal, so when you say children, you could still be a subservient child. You could still be, a disciple might be more revered by the God entity for all I know. Because, like, if you have like a psychopathic type of personality, a narcissistic type of personality, which tends to predominate this Earth matrix now, they see their children as different to how some people would expect, or at least how we used to expect that parents would see their children. Like the old saying, you give your children unconditional love. Well, that really is not the case at all with a psychopathic type of narcissistic personality. Trying to put it to where it sounds good, but I'm failing again as usual. There is a psychopathy. Is that the word? Like a kind of, I've got the wrong word here, but it's like of the psychopathic type of nature of the personality of particular people. Now, that is a particular type of psychological mind, because I couldn't think of the word. And like, for instance, I'll just use an example of myself then, because otherwise I can't do this intellectual stuff. Like, for instance, when I was a child, right, I had a mother and a father. And my father, I often quote some of the little things he said, even though he did not say a real lot. He was not very communicative at all. In fact, like most narcissists, if that's the word, or of the narcissistic personality type, going into a psychopathic type of mindset, in the sense that they do not really care too much for any life force except their own. That would be putting it bluntly, and that is in varying degrees also, you see. Like my father would often say that my mother had children, and she did. She had 3 children. Now, he said, she wanted always to have children, but she just saw children as like chickens, or ducks, like the mother duck and all the little ducklings follow behind. Well, that's all they want. That's all she wanted. That's what my father used to say. That's all she wants, is to have her little ducklings follow behind her. But she's not particularly interested in getting to know each individual little duckling, and they're not comparable to her in a way. She's the queen duck, and they all just follow behind. It's more like it's like a parade. It's more like just it's more like a handbag or extra, or it's just an extra accessory to her. That they're not individual human beings. Like, she's the only one, and we are accessories. We're the duckling. And my father used to say that. He used to say that, and he didn't say it. He didn't say it real derogatory, really. In fact, I don't know why he said it, but I think he also thought to some extent that way himself. In other words, that everything is really just an accessory to the to the narcissistic type of person. The world revolves around them. They're going to find it very, if they are really still got, like if they are still got any spirituality still in them, or even, because they are human, they are exactly the same as me, but it's just that they've separated completely from other human beings, as I had. But I was just antisocial. I was a loner. I did not feel for other human beings. I just chose, I was frightened of them. I didn't think I could measure up, so I separated. It was too difficult. But it wasn't like I thought that they were less. No, I didn't. And it wasn't like I didn't think that they bled, or that they didn't have feelings and stuff. No. In fact, I almost preferred to keep away from them because I didn't like to have to worry about that. I did it with animals to some extent, and even reluctantly there, because, in fact, I was wise in a way if I'd known then that I was in a matrix. But I was never successful because I always got drawn into things. But this, like I said before, this idea of keeping calm and removing even though it sounds as though you're almost becoming less human and more technological by doing that. But you shouldn't have to do that. But you do have to when you're in a matrix. Because the matrix, utilizes and creates the reality around your feeling emotion, which creates the reality. So it is the thing that separates humans from the technological beings. It is their power and their strength, and it is the weakness. It is the weak link for the technological beings. But they don't have a weak link anymore because they have utilized human beings to fill that little link. They have advanced their technology to the highest level that they can. And any weak links they use humans to fill in. But also, I've gone off track again, I can't believe that. But oh dear. There's an old song, right? There's an old song that I am familiar with, and it's called Justified and Ancient. And I don't know all the lyrics, but I remember hearing it years ago, and it just come back to me a few days ago. I may have even heard it in a supermarket, perhaps, because they play music in the supermarket. So music is vibration and frequency, So there's a lot more of that going on now too, because the Matrix wants to keep people in a frequency and a vibration world. And I think I did a thing on this a while back in one of the videos about music, just the concept of music, because I had always liked music and thought that it was a benefit and a good thing in this world. But, I have now went in the opposite direction and see music as not a life force for humans at all. Because I've gone off the track. I think I'll go on to that another time, but I think I've already said it. But the song is, I'm only going to quote, like I do with everything, I'll just pick bits and pieces. We're justified and we're ancient. And I must look this song up too after I've finished here and get all the lyrics, because I will probably get much more out of it rather than just one line. We're justified and we're ancient. This is the God entity of this world. Doesn't matter if the song isn't really about it, but it is for me, and it makes sense anyway. The God entity and its children, disciples, followers, worshippers, whatever, and those of us who just are a part of the matrix and its earth. Sorry about that, I'm being diverted. Even though it's a natural, what appears to be a natural thing happening, it is still the matrix, because just as I've said before, and I did say it in the previous video, I think, or was about to say it in this video, the matrix is very, very deep. In the sense that, like I say, if you think a matrix is just driving your car on one side of the road, yes, that of course that is the matrix, but it is only the very tip of the iceberg, as they say, because the matrix is so much more advanced than that. It's so much more intrusive than that. In fact, it's totally intrusive and totally inclusive. I think that might be a yes. It's like saying, yes, I am the all and I'm the total power. And I have everyone and everything under my thumb. And you'd say, well, if it's a God, we should bow down, and it should. Well, for some, maybe. And it is, like I say, a decision. Because even though it's a matrix, the spiritual human being will be given priority. The matrix itself does have to, I think, I could be wrong about this, I think does have to adhere to some unwritten rules, or they're probably written, that mean that even the human being the matrix God can literally do pretty much what it wants with its disciples and beings. But there still has to be, I think, and this depends on numbers too. That's another point too. See, numbers can become a big factor in this game that is played in this earth, because it's a game, because it's all contrived, it's all it's all designed to follow the human, to get what reality they want out of the human. But there's also the gone off track again. But let me say this, there's also two ways of looking at this, because I say everything that the Matrix God and its disciples do is exposed, is shown to you, and has to be. But it's just that you don't see it as an expression of the Matrix God entity. Let me just say it like this, that like I've said before, even most of the human beings that are now operating in the Matrix are operating for the Matrix, and the psychopathic personality, the narcissistic personality type, let's just say it's like this. This just come to me, okay. The God entity, is the big force behind it all, the total force. But its representations are its disciples, but also human beings who have turned to the dark side, in the sense that they have allowed their personalities, rightly or wrongly, intentionally or unintentionally, most of it's unintentional, most of it's environmental, shall we say, because, if the Matrix sets you up from the day you're born with certain circumstances, you will end up creating a certain personality, usually. You have to be pretty good to resist the temptation not to be full of anger, not to be full of animosity, not to be full of alienation from yourself and from others. Human beings are alienated from themselves mainly, and therefore from others. Which explains myself too. But, if you stretch it further, then it explains the narcissistic psychopath or the psychopathic narcissist. There's a difference between a really full-blown psychopath, evidently, because the main difference, I think, if I've got it right, and I only point this out because this is also a representation of how the God entity thinks to some extent, because it wants its children to be representations of it, and to this is what I think. It shows you its own psychopathy, psychological makeup, psychological profile, if you like. I can't think of these things. Via what it is creating in this Earth matrix. Because it wants to create a version of itself and a version of the reality that humans were originally meant to have, but now no longer have. We have went off the path in the opposite direction. We are no longer in sync with ourselves and a natural world. We are in sync with a matrix, and that is why we have veered off into a technological way of thinking, in the sense that we do not think as humans so much. We do not, the narcissistic personality type alone is a deviation from a normal, healthy, natural human being's way of being. Forget about intellect, forget about IQ and all the other stuff I talked about. This is just about a personality. This is just about a vibration. And everything is frequency and vibration. This is all about that. God entity knows this, but it wants to create its own version of reality. It wants a duplicate of what should have been, but its version, with its personality, its, it as the God and the creator of all. I've perhaps stretched it too far. I'm exaggerating now, and I've gone into fantasy world far too much. But I'm trying to say that this is just my interpretation of this being and its disciples, because see, the narcissistic psychopath or the psychopathic narcissist, they're like the being and its disciples in the sense that they need a continual, they drain the human being. At a personality level, at a personal level, they drain you psychologically, emotionally, vibrationally, frequency. They take all this from you. They control your frequency and vibration. They milk and draw from you energy from you, negative energy. They like negative energy. They don't like positive energy, because when you have positive energy, you can separate from them. Negative energy keeps you drawn to them. I don't think I put this right, but either way, many of them are just like, they just need a continual supply of it. They're like insatiable. They're vampires that get a taste for the blood, and the blood gives them life, energy, and they need more and more of it. They love it. It gets them high. They feel great. They feel that they're at their highest level. It's the opposite to the human spiritual level, but it gives them great, it does fill them, I would think. I don't know, because I don't, I can't get into their being. I can only see what happens. And, it is negative energy. And but what I'm trying to say is that the narcissistic personality, human, works very much for the matrix, because they keep the human at a low vibration. Even though they might not know they're working for the matrix, they might think they're just working for themselves, because they think they're giving themselves energy, and they are. They get your negative energy. But because they're really working for the matrix, they're defeating themselves. This is why I say the narcissist and the psychopath hold the key to the matrix in many ways, because their numbers are now vastly outnumbering a normal human being. What used to be the average, a normal human, that was in my other reality. I'm not even sure if it was true, because I could have been in fantasy world there. See, what is reality and fantasy? Did we always have a vast majority of so-called normal people who were a little bit more balanced, shall we say? And who certainly were not at the basically out of balance insane level? Because really it is insanity, because it's only a temporary benefit to them, and it's negative. I haven't explained that well, but either way, most narcissistic people, they live for just the life force. They live for just the negative life force. They live for sucking the life out of a human being. Just as its disciples do too. they may suck it, because it's different. Because also you must remember that it's not just negative energy. That see, they have many goals, shall we say? They expect great admiration. They expect you to acknowledge them as superior and godlike. Just that, like I say, that is just how it is. That seems reasonable if you were the god, or if you control a lot, maybe, I don't know. But the human being goes down the minute they do this. So you're giving up whatever is yours, and you're, you are not going to be a human being, you're not going to be superior, because the goal is admiration and servitude, total unconditional worship, unconditional love in that sense, but with no reward, because they're the god and you're the servant. You have to be put down in order for them to rise up. That is how it works. You can't just admire them and give them everything and look up to them. You have to go down yourself, because the God entity also doesn't like anything that, go back to the garden type of thing. It's like, doesn't particularly like anything that might be admired more. Even if that thing admires it, it still doesn't matter. It is kind of destructive in that sense. In fact, it is really like that. It's like, you have to subjugate yourself, your identity, any sense of you being special or unique, or even just what you plain are. Like I might be prepared to say, well, look, I don't think I'm special or unique, but I am still just am. I might acknowledge I've done this with, to where I say I will acknowledge that I will give you my, I will acknowledge that you're better. I will serve you. I'll put you on a pedestal. But then it's like the God entity in the sense that even if you do that, if in just being yourself you show a glimmer of delight or a glimmer of something that offends the person or the God entity because they may not have it, or it may make you feel good, and they see that somehow as lessening them, even though there's no intent that way. In fact, you may well be trying to communicate more, but it will be taken a wrong way. I've seen this happen myself, and it is very tragic and very sad for all concerned. It's tragic for me and it's tragic for them, especially one day when they realise that they really are the be and end all. They really are the centre of the universe in their own way. They don't have to pull down something else to make themselves better. That is the Matrix that's done that to them, that's told them that they are not human and not worthy of anything. And I'm going to try to explain this if I can. See, I think it happens something like this. And this is the difference, I think, between the demigods of this world, those that are of prominence in this world, those that seem to have the influence on the world, they command the attention of the little humans. And there again, I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers of how many are direct disciples as opposed, or how many are psychopathic narcissist or narcissistic psychopaths or any of this. I do not have exact numbers. If I did, the picture would be a lot clearer. But it's clear enough anyway, in the sense that I assume that humans are outnumbered by at least a reasonable amount at this point in time. And that also could be because, the world has changed, over the years, whether it's changed very quickly for some reason or whether it's just been a very gradual overtaking of things, I do not know. But certainly the personalities of people have changed. I can now see these things a bit more clearly because of my experience with dealing with different people, and because it's been exposed to me, I can pick it up much quicker now than what I would have years and years ago. Because also I didn't know it existed then either. So if you don't know something exists, you don't think it's possible. That's a very interesting thought. Like sometimes if you can just look at someone or something, you can see something. And your mind goes, there's something strange there. There's something odd there. Something not quite right. But if you don't think something is a possibility, you dismiss it. Cognitive dissonance, that was the word that I was given not very long ago by someone, and it sums up a lot of what goes on even with the people that dominate us. They have a lot of cognitive dissonance. They still don't see the matrix or the reality clearly. That's why I say they will be more surprised, and I don't know how they're going to react when they realise that everything they've done is unnecessary. They defeat those that they should be helping and supporting because they are their real friends. They are, like if someone will bow down to you and help you in every way, when they probably shouldn't anyway, you shouldn't be draining and defeating that person, because you're really defeating yourself. Because if you knew that the matrix had set you up to be what you are, and with the purpose of draining the humans who are not so much like that, it's a cycle. It's a total game, and it's very cleverly played, because you're talking about genius level matrix control here. You're not talking about spiritual high level, no, but you are talking about genius level, at intellectual level, at technical level, because they have a purpose. Just as that's what I was just going to say. The difference between, I think the difference between a narcissist and a psychopath, and this is just interesting because the two are very much merging now anyway, and that will be even more dangerous for human beings, because the psychopath usually does have a goal, just as the God entity and the matrix has goals, even though it appears to be a crazy mixed up madhouse type world. Because it is a matrix, it does have goals. It does have a purpose. Its purpose over the years has been to use the human being. But, it doesn't live in the moment as the narcissist does. It lives in the moment, but it also has goals. As the psychopath often has a goal. It uses humans more for its goal, whereas the narcissist mainly tends to be like a vampire. Its sole purpose is just to get the blood. It doesn't really care about the bigger picture or what's going to happen after it's got the blood. It's just looking for more and more blood, if you follow me. Whereas a psychopath might take some blood, but that won't be the sole purpose. It'll be more like they want they want a nice fantasy world for themselves. They don't want the human to have their fantasy world. They want the proper fantasy world. Whereas the narcissist doesn't look very far ahead, tends to, be a little bit more like someone who's addicted. They're more like an addictive, like I've been, and like many other humans are addicted too. We have our addictions. And so we tend to live much more around our addictions and our weaknesses as opposed to our strengths and building a good fantasy world for ourselves. And hopefully a real world. But you know what I'm saying? I don't think I put that very well. But either way, I'll get back to the difference between the Matrix disciples, and they're justified and they're ancient. They're justified in everything they do. The Matrix God feels justified in everything it does. Because it's ancient, justified and ancient, it figures it's been around longer than humans. And it wouldn't matter probably anyway, but it's advanced technologically. It feels justified in every action it does. It believes its own lies. My father used to say, some people believe their own lies. See, he used to say some of these things because he was always projecting his inner self out, as many narcissistic, psychopathic types of people do. They usually project onto other people what they think, what is their way of thinking. The Matrix God does that. He projects onto others what he wants, what it wants, should I say, and, not necessarily what you would think about things. I've gone off, but either way, Calm at the Centre of the Storm was one of my videos, and this never happens even when I'm making a video. You've got to slow down, relax, and say, it doesn't matter if I get a few things wrong, but just try to keep the flow going. But because I try to, realise I've gone off, then I go off further. But the Matrix God disciples, everyone or anyone who's anything in this earth matrix is of the Matrix, a disciple, a follower, a worshipper, a child, children, depending on how they look at it or what the situation is, and I for one would not know. But they follow, just like the ducks following, like we were supposed to follow our mother, like chickens or the ducks, and we did. Well, you don't have a choice, but you can be aware of that, whereas maybe in some other situation, I've gone off that. That doesn't matter anyway. But it is the same principle that is applied in this reality. So we have like human beings, okay? Normal people, should I say. To me, human beings are normal. But normal people in this reality don't come across as human beings, half of them, because they're kind of not normal in a way. They're separated from other human beings, even though superficially they might appear to be more loving and more close than myself or anyone else. And I openly admit that I have, that I'm an antisocial loner type of person. So, but they will have more people around them, and they will appear to have, but it is like the mother duck with the ducklings following behind. The people, everything that's in their existence is only to serve them. They don't actually see them as individuals. They're part of them. If you're not part of the God entity, or not part of, the narcissistic psychopath, not part of what their plans are or their thinking, then, you will be pushed down and, even got rid of, eliminated from the scene. They will see, you will be then seen as something to be got rid of, because they will see it in a funny kind of way as a threat to them, to their person, to their identity. Now here we're going to go on to the identity. This is the point that I was trying to make, but as usual I've lost it. And I'm going to have trouble explaining this. Now, see, human beings are born into a matrix, and the matrix, God's disciples, children, are born into a matrix, I think. I could be wrong about this, because how people are born I would not know these days. I have to say that honestly, because even conception is different. But they're born into the matrix. But when the matrix, if you are a chosen disciple for the matrix, and you consciously know or are told that you are a matrix disciple or child or follower or worshipper, and you are told that that is your God, supposing this is what happens. I don't know if this is what happens. It's my fantasy, it's my fairy tale, so I can say it. I don't know if this is what happens, and even with most humans, I can only speak for my own. So it is a fantasy. Even humans will all have a different upbringing, a different environment that they grow up in. So I'm talking about how you are born into the matrix. Now, the disciples would, I imagine, be born into the matrix, and they would be, from day one, they would be given a different environment and a different upbringing to the humans who are not of the matrix, or who are unaware of the matrix, or unaware of the matrix God, or unaware of that particular way of doing things, or whatever it is. Now, the disciples are groomed from a very young age to be the advocates for the matrix, to be the chosen gods and goddesses, demigods of the matrix in their chosen fields, depending on what field it is. It could be that you're a really, they help you to, they will create a good voice so that you can be a good singer, or maybe you might they might want you to be a scientist or an astronaut or whatever it is. That will be encouraged and nurtured. That was the word I was looking for the other day, from the day they're born. But also, they will be made aware, probably, some of them, maybe not all of them. So even this could vary, I don't know. See, this is the problem in making these videos and in speculating about the matrix and all the different types of humans and different beings. That's the difficulty, is not knowing. I have to make it simple and lump it all in together. But I'm guessing from what I see in the real world, or the matrix or its representations, that even though they present themselves as fallible humans, feeling fallible, weak humans in many ways, with just maybe one talent or an ability, this is really not their history. This is really not their life, I wouldn't think. It could be for some of them, depending on when they are chosen. But if you're chosen right from the beginning, I would imagine that you would be given the same way that humans are, I use that word, indoctrinated from the day they're born with the education and the different things that we are. We're told different things. We have our world set up for us. We have our identities given to us. We have our identities given to us. We don't just become what we are. We are not individuals. We think we are. I thought I was. Some more than others. There are again degrees, depending on, your circumstances or what sort of personality you might have as I'm finding it very hard to explain this. But, the Matrix disciples are the same as us, except that they are given, I would personally say that the Matrix disciples are given, a identity from the day they're born, or at some point they know their place in the world, they know their purpose, they know their beliefs, they think they know how the world operates. And they do. They understand probably more than me and you or some people about the Matrix, God, and all that thing. All that is kept from us. We are the servants of the Matrix. They are the chosen servants. We are the necessary, but downgraded ones of the Matrix. We're not the demigods. I'm not putting this well, but essentially the Matrix demigods, those that serve the God entity, they are given a very superior identity. They feel important. They feel they know where they belong in the Matrix. They feel that they are serving a purpose. And if they are in contact with the God, or aware of that, they feel that they are spiritual. They feel that they are high spiritual, technologically directed beings. That is how they probably think of themselves. It may not be the reality, and it certainly wouldn't be how I would see their reality, because I'm a human being, but that's how they would see it. And they would think that I am misguided and non-spiritual, just as I might think that they're misguided and non-spiritual, you see. So it is like that thing. And they have more reason to believe their scenario, shall we say, their fantasy, as opposed to mine, because, they are made to feel superior, and they are shown that they are. And, they think that they serve the higher big picture, the higher, they think they serve the universe probably, or whatever. That's just putting it in a fancy way, because there is none of that really. But Probably not, I wouldn't think, but I think we live in a small fantasy world of our own making and of the Matrix's making, in a way, but it doesn't matter if it's bigger or smaller. That really, because I thought it was bigger. Even many videos ago, I thought that the Matrix was bigger. Now I think it's smaller. But it matters not, because you're not going anywhere, and you can't go anywhere until you're allowed to, or until a certain time. And this is why I say we're spiritual beings, because, a lot of the choices in the Matrix will still be made by the human being. But will they make the right choice, or will they make it consciously or unconsciously, or because of the Matrix mainly? So, and also the human beings will be also the deciding factor. Like I say, even the narcissist and the psychopath are human beings, so they hold the key to the Matrix. They are the undecided. They are the undecided or the unpredictability of the Matrix, which is why they're used so much. And also because they influence and control other human beings to a vast degree. They're not like myself or live and let live type of person. They're not about saying, oh, it's your decision. They're about, no, like the Matrix God, I know this situation. I know what is best. I know what is right. You cannot be right. You will be wrong. And because of negative energy, they will be, they will be like my father used to say another thing, apart from saying that some people believe their own lies, that some people are obstructionist. I often used to wonder why he said that, because I never really saw him as too much of an obstructionist. But he also said, if everything is going some people's way, then they're happy. So, in other words, you could be an obstructionist, but you don't have to be an open obstructionist if you've already got it going your way. Because, in other words, if you've already got people under your control, your children under your control, you don't have to obstruct them so much because they're already obstructing themselves, But certainly if it ever comes to certain points, you will see that obstruction has come out. With some people, you see it in an astronomical way. And some of us see this in the Matrix now with the God entity, where you will be obstructed. No end. If you go left, they'll go left. If you go right, they'll go right. If you go down the centre, they'll go down the centre. If you try to go up, they'll go up. But you will be obstructed at every turn. Because, they don't want you to be yourself, because even in being yourself, you might just be a little, like I've said in other videos, a little matchstick in the dark. You might just be a little flame that might ignite a big fire. You might just be that wave that goes over the rocks and then goes out and washes with a good vibration over the entire Earth matrix, such as it is. And, this is not acceptable to the Matrix, and it's not acceptable to the psychopath or to the narcissist either. It's just, and they, in turn will control a human being at a personal level. My own personal thoughts is that, and I've gone off the identity thing again, my own personal thoughts in my own reality, in my own life before I saw the Matrix, was that my whole life could easily be restricted just by one other human being if I gave that human being too much power, whether it be your parents right through to those you associate with. And your whole reality it might not be as much a horror movie as when you see The Matrix and you realise that it is all inclusive and all intrusive and that it's everywhere, because the Matrix is everywhere. But, it can restrict you to where you cannot function as an individual, natural, free-flowing human being, to where you reach any sort of potential for yourself, much less any sort of contentment. You're always, even if things are going good, there's always going to be that underlying unease, that sense that you're restricted, because it's all about obstruction and restriction. Yes, that's the sole purpose in a way. And that can lead to your destruction at a spiritual level. It certainly does, because yes, your identity or your individuality or what makes you you is going to be hampered, or at least confined only to the one person. There is a very possessiveness too. So, the possessiveness and the reason to stop you, that business of where I said we're all connected, that's another thing very much with these personality types, is they like to restrict you and keep you to themselves. So whether you're happy or not, if you were happy with worshipping someone else, then they're happy, but they won't be happy if you extend any of that worship to anyone else. This is the same with the Matrix. It's all about giving all to the one. It's not about, you sharing it with other human beings or expanding yourself. It is like that. You will, if you worship, be given, yes, rewards in this reality. And that can lead you to believe, I would imagine, that you are fulfilling your own destiny, that you are at a reasonable spiritual level, even, that you are you. Because if you're very successful at something in this reality, there's no reason you wouldn't say, well, yes, I'm successful, that's me. But of course, that's the tricky thing too about this reality, and I've lost track again, is that they're still not real humans. You could be the most successful person in this matrix, but if you are of the matrix, you will not be a real human being, because you will have to give up a certain amount to the worship. And like when you have relationships with narcissists and psychopaths, you give most of yourself to that person. They take you over. It's a form of possession in a funny kind of way. But I'll have to touch on that in another video, and I'll also have to get my thoughts straight on it. But one thing for sure, you are not allowed to be yourself at a highest human, normal, or spiritual level. Take it whichever way you want, because they're all one in the same in a funny kind of way. Of course, there's more to this than this video and what I'm saying. Of course there is. There's a God entity that runs it, disciples and that sort of thing, and then you have the human that is born into this reality and basically, like myself, does not know anything and is alone almost. Really, the disciples and the demigods, over a period of time, they develop an identity because they're worshipped, because they are rewarded, because they are given power and talents, and because some of them understand, maybe most of them, even for all I know, might understand the reality in the sense that they understand that they are serving a God, that they are serving the matrix, that the matrix is part of a bigger picture. The matrix, God is the all. They can develop themselves to their highest level if they follow the matrix God. They believe that. Humans, on the other hand, most of the real humans are given no identity. They're made to feel small and alone. And then the matrix comes around them to cramp their style, even if they accept that and say, well, I'm just a little pathetical human being, but I'm still going to try to get a little bit of vibration going here. Even that will be not acceptable, even if you're playing in the matrix. This is what I see, because we are in, like I said, we are at the end of a World War III, so it's a different, I suppose you could say, I don't know much about timelines, but you could say it's a different time, so therefore different times will require the matrix to operate differently. And the matrix is very desperate at this time, maybe. It appears to have it all and going very much its own way, but because numbers are not the major thing, as I've said before, with human beings, because if humans do operate at a slightly higher level or at a higher level, they are, the matrix is no match for that. It's just that we never get to any level. And we don't have the identity or the understanding or the belief in ourselves or in anything else. And why would we when we're in a matrix? That we are capable of anything or that we have any importance. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we are. We don't know what's going on. This is from the day we're born. We feel alone. We feel isolated. We feel like that speck of sand. We don't think that speck of sand is the vibration of the matrix and that it has any ability. It has more ability than the matrix disciples, I think. But the matrix disciples flaunt their abilities and they use their abilities to influence your vibration. So you're like, human beings are still spiritual beings, so they still have power, but their power has been suppressed. They themselves don't know they have any power. They don't know. We have no identity. I know this myself. You feel as though you almost don't exist, and that is also how the matrix likes it, and this is also how your fellow human beings make you feel, because they are of the matrix now. They are the psychopathic narcissist. They like to do that to other humans because that's how they feel. But they don't accept that. They think, I feel small, but you look as though you don't feel that small, even though you really do. But you might still be sending out something. And they're like, the only way that I can make myself feel big is to squash your flame and to make you feel smaller. And that suits the matrix God and its disciples. Because, they operate a totally different way. They're technological. They believe in technology. The God is technological in its nature, in its being, in its essence. And it likes technology. It loves technology. Even though, as I've said before, and this was from a movie that I got it from, even though I never actually saw the movie. And that movie was called Prometheus, but I never saw it. I just saw a few scenes and was impressed, and then I saw a bit of a synopsis, but it didn't actually make sense to me fully. But for some reason, I got that kind of vibration that the so-called creators were going extinct, And actually, strangely enough, I saw that movie about a week ago. I tried to get it months ago when I was interested but couldn't get it. And I got it about a week ago and watched it. I didn't actually watch it right through. I watched it almost right through. But the reason for that was because although I did finally get the movie, it was it was a silent movie because it was in another language. So I actually didn't hear any of the dialogue at all. So I just watched the visuals for the whole film. But because I'd already had a reasonable synopsis from looking at a few little videos that explained the story by people who had watched it, I could figure out what was going on. In fact, I actually consciously watched it even though I knew it was in a different language because I thought, hey, I just want to see the visuals and see what I can get out of it. But evidently that actually was in the actual story that they had been extinct or whatever, and I did not actually know that, but I picked it up for some reason just because I'm so anti-technology, you see. I personally think that anything at all that even if it is technological, especially because I think that they were not fully technological at the start, and once you manipulate yourself, like I've said before, I'm just a firm believer in whatever is should stay as it is. You don't have like a species. You don't make a snake want to be a bird. A snake shouldn't want to fly. It should accept what it is and be the best that it is as it is. I'm a firm believer in this, even if I believed the complete opposite to what I do think, or complete fantasy the opposite, even, I said this before, even if it was a totally natural world, even if there was no matrix, even if it was a totally random, haphazard world where humans can just plonk around and do what they like and everything's great. And someone sort of said, oh, we can, like a technological being come and said, oh, look, you can use my technology to make yourself better in some way. You see, I think this is the danger. I would say, no, that is not what you should do. It might be good for a while. Yes, that is the magic of technology, because technology is a form of magic. It's an artificial magic. It's a limited magic. Human beings are unlimited. They should be unlimited magic, so they don't need any technology. Technology only restricts and limits them, but they don't know that because they have been born into a matrix that tells them they're a little human being that's limited. And because they are at low frequency and are limited, they never get to prove to themselves or to experience even a little bit of that potential that they might be able to make themselves better just by what they are, just by their very thinking. Just by their very thinking, feeling and being. That would seem an impossibility. And if you're not allowed to, if the matrix is always around you and it's disturbing and it's negative, you're never going to look beyond feeling better. You're never going to get to any other level. But even if none of what I said is true, if it's a total fantasy, total fairy tale, still doesn't matter. A human being, just a normal, natural, little old human being, even if it's a little human being stuck in a huge cosmos of universes and whatever, not in a matrix, but, even if the reality, another person's reality is true, I still don't think it makes any difference. I mean, it makes a difference, but I would still say that it is advisable, it is beneficial, it is normal, it is natural, it is best. It is the only way, is for beings, whatever species you are, whatever animal you are, whatever you are, you should stay what you are and only develop what is natural and what is in you. That is how it's meant to be. And that is the only way that you can keep anything correct, I would think. That's just what I think. And I would think that it would be a nicer place anyway, personally. What do you think? You know, like, it's very easy to get impressed by technology. It's very easy to be addicted to it. I'm addicted to it too because I like to watch all these movies, even though I learn a lot from them. But before I thought they were information or, you know, showing me what the Matrix was, showing you the reality, because the reality has to be shown to a human being. Why? Because you have to be given that choice to make a decision. Human beings can only be put down by other human beings. Sure, the technological God will create the circumstances, will create the scenery, will create the play, will create the characters, will give you its disciples, will give you its followers, will preach its beliefs, will preach its opinions, will give you its ideas. They will come from human, but they will be recycled, shall we say. That's another thing we like to do now, is recycle. The Matrix loves to recycle, but it loves to recycle humans, especially their thoughts and their mind. But it likes to use that for its matrix too, because it likes a lot of the human's ideas. It likes a lot of the human's thoughts. It likes the human feelings even, because those feelings can be maneuvered in the matrix, can be can be used by the matrix and its disciples and its minions and its followers. And then we have a technological, human-like reality. But it's a false reality. It's the fairyland. We live in a fairyland in many ways, in more ways than what even I realised. But, it's a fairyland for the Matrix God and its disciples. It's not a fairyland for humans in the sense that it's a horror movie fairyland for us. It's not it's not a fairy tale where everything falls into place and everyone lives happily ever after. And, it will appear to be that way, but it will only be that way. If there's any peace or harmony, it will be for the Matrix God and its entities, its disciples. It won't be for humans. We're not part of that reality. Many of us think we are. Many of us might even, at a conscious level, think that it is good. It will, like I say, technology can be more magical than true magic. Because if you don't see your own true magic and you're not allowed to practice it, humans are not allowed to practice magic. It's only the Matrix disciples and their technological beings that are allowed to practice magic. They practice technological magic on human beings. All the rest is the movie, the play, the acting. All the rest is just a great big stage play. Designed to keep us interested, to keep us distracted, and to keep us thinking that that is the reality. And that those disciples are the real people, that they are the special people, they are the demigods, that they are better than a human being. I didn't put that very well, I don't think. Because, like I say, they're given the identity. They know who they are. They feel special. They feel superior. and they know. They're a bit like the bully at school. You know, the bully has all the friends, and the bully has all the power, and he'll pick on me or you or some other human that might be more isolated or might appear to have a few faults or something. But the bully knows that that real human being has something that it doesn't have. That's why it singles out to bully someone that has done them no harm. You know, because, you know, I won't be personal about this, but sometimes the person who is bullied actually likes the bully or would like to be friends with the bully, who might even admire the bully, that's right. But that bully isn't interested in that. They want to bring that person down for whatever reason. And they have all their friends, they have all their disciples around them. That makes them feel powerful and strong. You know, they don't operate alone. And I've lost track of that. My thought went. I had a good thought there. I was on the train, but I'm afraid I fell off. But yes, the disciples of the Matrix, they believe their own scenario. Like the Matrix God, they believe their own lies. And as an episode of an old TV show that was the most popular show in the world, and I must have watched the episodes 100 times each myself, I now wouldn't touch the show at all. Only because I see it now in a different light as a promotion of the Matrix and a promotion of the Matrix demigods, a promotion of an essentially negative personality. And actually that was in the show. This was a comedy show, but the essential, even the end of it, was showing that all these appealing characters that we liked were essentially negative, selfish people of a matrix. They did not care too much about even those closest to them. They made no apologies for it in the show even. In fact, it made them appealing and desirable to us, which shows that we are conditioned to like the narcissistic, psychopathic personality type. We think that is normal, and it has become normal. But in that show, in one of the episodes, they were trying to beat the lie detector. And one of the characters, the main character, says to the other main character, you can beat a lie detector. In other words, and we all know that psychopaths can beat lie detectors. That's a scientific fact. That's why they don't use them in trials or things, because although they're 90% accurate or 95% accurate, which you'd think would be pretty good, because of the psychopath, they are rendered invaluable. A human cannot lie to a lie detector and beat a lie detector. A real human cannot do that. A psychopath can. Because, like it said in that show, when the fellow said, yes, you can beat the lie detector, like my father said, some people believe their own lies. In the show he said, it is not a lie if you believe it. And psychopaths believe their own lies. And this is a representation of the Matrix, if you follow me. You know, the Matrix puts a lot of stuff to us. We believe it, and they even believe it. It is not based in reality, but it is their belief, and they believe it. It's a bit like I've gone off the track here, but the Matrix God, and I could go back to the garden, but I'll have to try and do that again, because that's another good example of where you believe what you believe about yourself and about your circumstances, like Pinocchio, that was the one I did before. Pinocchio, his nose got real long every time he lied because he lied all the time. Because he wasn't a real boy. He wanted to be a real boy. But he mimicked what real boys say and do. But he was lying because he wasn't a real boy. But he copied a real human. He studied real humans and then used that to present himself as really human. And because he was envious, he didn't accept that he was a wooden, artificially carved boy. He wanted to be like the humans. But either way, that's gone off the track. But it is, all these things are very tied in together. They're all just little bits, and I don't put it very well at all, as you can see. I put it very poorly. But they're all like the lie detector, you can beat the lie detector. It's not a lie if you don't believe it's a lie. So most psychopaths and even narcissists do believe their own version of truth. And they're really lies because they're not actually the truth, but they believe them. Because their mind is very split up, I would think. Like we tend to think, oh, it's terrible to lie all the time, because we're not talking about the odd lie, the little fib. We've all done that. We're talking about where their whole reality becomes lying all the time, and they think that because it becomes part of their identity, their reality then becomes that. Like the Pinocchio, he starts to think that if I can lie enough and convince other little boys and other humans that I'm a real boy, they'll believe it. And I'll believe it. They'll believe it. He believed it. He thought he could do that. So it's not a lie if you believe it. And that's how psychopaths beat the lie detector. They don't actually consciously think, oh, I'm, like humans would be like, oh, I know I'm lying. I'm going to try to pretend that I'm telling the truth. But their very body alone will give it away. But the psychopath doesn't have feelings that way, doesn't see anything wrong in lying. Because they think they can just say and do what they like. They think they can make up their reality. And they actually believe it, because I think they live so much in the moment that they don't actually... I could be wrong about this, because I really don't understand the mind of a psychopath to this extent at all. But, they separate so much. I think that they don't... they're only... they're probably so single-minded, like the God entity, of certain purposes and certain needs and a certain goal, etc. They don't actually, and they live a lot more in the moment. But if they're intelligent, they can really work a human round their little finger. They can literally, they can play havoc, and they can just do what they like, because they study humans. Humans don't study psychopaths or gods or disciples. We don't study that. We just play along. If we actually studied some of these demigods and studied the people that are studying us, we would have a bit of an upper hand. But we don't do that. We just live, and we don't understand why anyone would want to. We're still interested in other people, but we're not going to study that person to bring them down, shall we say, or to get a one-up on them, or to keep them suppressed. It'd probably just be, you'd have to be totally obsessed. And I'm not saying this can't happen. I'm not saying that you can't be obsessed. If you're motivated enough, or if your psychopathy, or whatever that word is there for you to do that. Because I have done this myself when I was younger. I say this, and I'm certainly not proud of it, but it's, we're in a matrix now. So things that I wouldn't have said not that long ago, I will say now, because, in a desperate situation and difficult times and faced with total destruction almost, you do adopt a different way of looking at things. So, there's, you still have a little bit of the old fear and stuff of, people thinking good or bad and all that. But at the same time, a lot of that is a type of concern about yourself, and it probably isn't going to change that much for me. So yeah, you do throw that away to some extent. And I'm not saying that everyone should though, because, you live in the real world, and what people think see, that's the danger and the trick of the Matrix, is that, there are still real humans, and there are still others that are like the undecided voter, the swinging voter, the voter that decides the election, as I tried to put in the last video. How many of them there are, though, I don't know. But, to presume that it doesn't matter and that everything is all set, and that, even your own destiny is determined to such an extent that, oh, well, I'm in a matrix. It's all going down a certain way, so, and, everyone's negative, and there's all the bullies, and there's this and there's that. It's very easy to forget that there may be undecided voters that could be a benefit. So I wouldn't recommend that everyone does just say every single thing, even negative stuff about themselves, because it will be exploited by the Matrix. No one's going to hand you and say, oh, it was nice of you to be honest. It was nice of you to show us negative stuff about yourself at your own expense, just so that maybe we could be helped. No, it's not going to work like that. And actually, it may or may not help people anyway. But it could show, I try to do it to show, that we are under the spell of a matrix, that we are not our own, that even if you think you are a pretty good person, right? And personally, I would not necessarily think that everything is quite as good as what we think. But even if you think, oh yeah, you're not too bad, and I'm sure that this is the case. We've all fell hard in many ways. Now, like I say, when I was younger, I come, I was, I've lost my train of thought there. I had it. See, I can't express what I'm saying unless I get the right train of thought to put the facts correctly. You see, that's why I shouldn't diverge so much. But we can all be taken over by other people, influenced by other negative people, like I say, to where we do things that, we operate that way. We will go with the matrix. We will essentially become like the matrix disciples at various times. Maybe not all the time like the matrix and its disciples and its God, because we don't have that same goal, but we can have a goal. We can be made to feel jealous of things, envious, to where we think, just like the Matrix God, oh, that's a threat to me somehow. I've been programmed and conditioned to think that's a threat, so I will eliminate that threat rather than compete. But even to compete, it's like, no, it's easier to bring that one down, bring someone else down. We've all done that. I've done that. And I'm sad to say that I have brought down, real humans. I think. Not, psychopaths type of thing. Because to be honest, and I'm going to diverge here and I'll have to finish up because I'm going to... it's too unstable and silly what I'm saying. But, even psychopaths can play with other psychopaths. Other narcissists can play with other narcissists, because that's the interesting thing, and I'm just going to emphasize this once again, which I've done many a time. The sad thing about this Matrix world is that there are human beings. Some human beings have ventured into the dark in the sense that they have become very negative and therefore have become narcissistic and psychopathic, but they are still humans. They're not of the Matrix 100%. They're just, they're played by the Matrix the same as the humans. They don't know they're played. If they knew that, like I say, one day if some of them wake up, they're going to be devastated to realise how important they really are, that they didn't have to bring down real humans to be important, because they are a real human being, and they are the centre of all, and that they are the envy of the Matrix gods, its demigods. But, because they know that the human at the highest level is higher than them. But, of course, at the present time, and probably has been for a long time, the human is at the lowest level, and the Matrix God and its disciples are at the highest level, because they are at a high technological level, and therefore, by comparison, even spiritually, they appear to be more advanced, more at a better level. But it's not a true spiritual level. It's a delusion. They've gone into, many of them it is a type of delusion, I would think. But that's only because I hang on to my particular way of looking at it. To them, I'm delusional, and the reality would say that I'm delusional and they're not, because if I'm a human, I'm at the lowest level. And I can't prove that there's a higher level because I've not got to it, and, can hardly, even raise the vibration a little bit. Whereas they're exercising all sorts of power, and at all levels. See, this is, so it is an argument or putting forward that idea, and it doesn't hold water for most people. And this is why even the undecided voter, the human that is still not sure, is leaning that way. And if you have narcissistic, psychopathic people, or a psychopathic narcissist that lives very much for the material and is much more in the moment, and at a survival type level in a way, I'm not putting this very well, they're really going to go for the Matrix and its form of of fantasy spirituality. They're not going to go for the real human fantasy fairy tale. They're not going to do that, I wouldn't think. And I don't think they have. But all this, as I said before, it's confusing. It's all about numbers, and I don't know what the numbers are. It's all about different. There are only two types of people, my father said 50 years ago. And that's keeping it very simple, but it keeps it nice and basic, you know. But those two types of people, you know, they will see themselves in a different way, you know. They will see the world differently, and I've gone off the track. But either way, like I say, that identity thing is a big thing. If humans were, I personally think that if humans, real humans, any human was, when they're born into the matrix, given some choices, you know, anyone that has a strong sense of identity and a firm belief that they are doing their best, that they're at their best, they've got a big advantage over that which is shoved into a matrix, pushed with all the matrix kind of reality, but not given any sense of themselves. In fact, that sense of self is taken from them. They're like, you be the matrix self. We say that you are this or that, or you're not this or you're not that. And you have to be this or have to be that in order to succeed in this earth world, this matrix. You are nothing in comparison with our demigods. You know, and you're just a little speck. That's right, you're not that little speck of sand which has the potential to, you know, when the tide comes over, it has the potential to then sweep over the whole. Well, that is not shown to you. And that little potential is not nurtured. Nothing in a real human is nurtured. Only negativity, mainly, made to feel less, not more. If you want to look at it just at a basic personality level, any level, much less that your whole being is at a limited level, you know, so that you don't change this reality, because, you know, human beings are a creative force in this reality. Human beings are the really only creators in the reality, if you really look at it that way. They're the unknown creators. They're the unintentional creators. They're the secret creators. And it's a secret to themselves, not to the matrix or the matrix God and its disciples. No, they're well aware of it. You are their target audience, whether it be for a concert or a movie or anything, you know. But because you're a spiritual being, the matrix takes from the human, but has to also give back to the human. But what it gives back is it takes information from the human, it takes the human's thinking, intellect, feelings and thoughts and ideas, and its creativity from the human. But it also has to give it back to the human in some form of showing them some sort of choice or some sort of decision. And this is why I say we're spiritual human beings of a high level, because this would not be done otherwise. This is the only reason I come to my conclusion that I'm a spiritual human being, that human beings are special, and that they're the main force of everything. Certainly in you know, in this reality, and in any other. But in this reality, we're not shown this. We're not, we're in the dark instead of seeing the light, as they say. Look, I'm trying to explain it and trying to be fancy, but it's not coming across. But, we're put into, we have no sense of that we are the creators of the reality. But the matrix, because we really are, the matrix has to give back that reality to us. But it knows that because we have been thrown into the matrix and kept in the dark, and that the matrix is allowed to still make its reality too. And we don't know that our thinking, thoughts and feelings and everything that makes us human and special is taken from us by the matrix. We don't know that everything, that the matrix God knows your every thought, as a God would, but this is via technology. This is not really a spiritual thing. Some people think it is, but I would say it's not. But that's just my way of looking at it, But it's at a level that is godlike, that is magic, that is supernatural, but it is all done mainly through technology. Technology is the God entity's form of magic or spirituality. All the rest comes from a human. But it's taken from the human, but the human doesn't know that it's taken from them. So if I think so, let me use an example. Okay, so if I or you think something creative or gets an idea, but you don't tell anyone, the matrix God knows that idea, knows that thought. It's got it. It gives it to its disciples, makes its movie from it, and gives that movie back to me. But I think that it has come from the demigods, the matrix disciples. I don't know that it's been harnessed from me without my knowledge, subconsciously, technologically. In fact, if I see this, I call it a coincidence. And also then I'm like, oh, the matrix demigods, they are so human. They are so profound. They are so feeling. They are so emotional. They are so real. They are so human. They are so beautiful. They are so wonderful. They are so creative. They are so genius. They are so this. They are so that. They are not. But we think they are because this is the process. This is our reality. And it's only, if you buy this, and it's only if we realise that the humans that are this source, because, I guess it's a bit like the old thing of where someone invents something but they don't have a patent on it. We don't have a patent on anything that's ours. So it can be stolen. You tell someone else, they can use it and they can make all the money and all the fame and fortune out of it. It kind of works like that, really, in this reality. And it works in this reality. Many humans are consciously aware of this too, because even the demigods themselves steal from one another. They openly show you a lot of these things, It's their game, it's their fantasy, and it's their illusion. And it's just a question of whether you believe it or not. A lot of people are so happy with the entertainment. They're happy with the movie. They're happy with the illusion. So they don't even if they thought it was not as genuine as what they think or not as real as what they think. And I don't think most humans would actually think, because we don't think anything of ourselves at all. We really don't. And this is because we're in a matrix. We would say, I would probably say, well, yeah, I thought that idea a little bit, and I had that little creative thing, or I had that little thing going. But hey, I would never have made it as good as what those demigods did. I would never have been able to make a whole movie, a whole scenario out of a little thought or out of a little bit of creative stuff. No, well, you see, that's because obviously I am not going to sit here and say that I created the whole movie or that I created. No. But, you know, they pick their little tidbits just as we do. You know, like, you know, my father used to say, oh, there again, my father used to always say, oh, you just want a tidbit. You don't want the whole pie, you just want a tidbit. You're just looking for the little special thing. You know, after dinner, you're just looking for that little tidbit snack. You're already full, you've had enough, but you don't want the basic stuff. You just want something a little... Well, that's what the Matrix does. It just picks all the little specialties out of all the little special humans, because all humans are special, because they're human, if you want to look at it that way. It's just that because we think there's so many of us, you know, like if you've got billions of something, you don't think each little one is special. Even though we are, you know, some denominations do go along that line, but we don't really believe it. And because we're in a matrix where the demigods are the special ones, it's reasonable for us not to think that. But either way, also, the numbers may not be like that either. You know, we may not actually be, like I say, if, you know, like if we knew the true reality, you know, the numbers can change. You know, like I say now, a real just basic normal human being that used to be someone that I would say was boring, dull. You know, I said this before in another video, that little basic, normal, logical, rational, simple human being is now a rarity in this world of psychopathic personalities and demigods everywhere and everything running rampant. Yeah, there's no rational little basic human mind anymore, or very little, if you really look beyond the surface. You apparently think that everyone is normal, you know, but that normal human being is the rarity now. Not someone who had high intelligence, not someone who was regarded as any big deal. Probably some people who might not even have much education, but they could see things that people can't see now. And that was the norm. That was the average person. That was the bulk of this so-called population. Now, maybe I was living in fairyland then. Maybe none of that happened. Maybe those people didn't exist. Maybe they were all really psychopaths back then even. I didn't know it. I don't know. Because I would say, looking at my own self, of how you can be possessed, how you can be overtaken, how you can not see things at all. And why would you see the truth when it's not shown to you? You know, how can you know that you're in fairyland when it's not shown that there's a curtain, that you're in Wonderland, that you're in, you know, that you're in Oz and that it's operated by a man behind the curtain? You wouldn't know. How could you know that? You know, you're not stupid for not knowing that. I'm not stupid for not seeing it, and I still don't see it all. You can't know what isn't shown to you. You know, and you can't believe that you're special or that you're unique or that humans are the only thing. You can't know that if it's not revealed to you, if you're not aware of that, if you don't know what's going on around you. I know it because I see circumstances now due to life changes and the world changing. But I wouldn't know it either. And I still find it hard to believe because I don't feel any of this. I don't see it in my own reality. I'm not able to feel particularly, I don't feel any power or any creativity. In fact, rather the reverse. I feel exploited, taken over, and that you're sacrificing your identity, your spirituality for a matrix that you don't want to buy into, even because you don't agree with the over technological world. So it's, and this is what will happen with a lot of psychopathic, narcissistic types of people, depending on their degree. This will happen to them, and they will find it even harder to deal with than me, because depending on how, if you think you're a god, but you're living and you're just strutting around and you're just a little person, and if you dong a few humans on the head, that makes you feel good, you're only donging yourself on the head, because when you realise that the matrix has the real power and control, and that you're working for the matrix by doing that. The real humans are your only way to really survive the matrix, in a way, unless you are a matrix totally rewarded disciple, in other words, where you're really benefiting greatly from the matrix. But I see a lot of people who are working for the matrix, but they're not benefiting from the matrix at all. But they're still defeating any chance for them to rise above the matrix, shall we say, or make a better reality for themselves. Because the matrix is never going to give some narcissistic people even the benefits of the matrix. They're never going to do that, because even in some narcissists and some psychopaths, because they're still humans, that's why I say the human, that's why I realise the human is the be and end all. So if they have any weaknesses that lean towards a human, even if it's only a little, they might be, like I say, humans might be falling down like flies, but they still may not, because a lot of narcissistic psychopaths, if they are a lone wolf, shall we say, and they actually think they're like a god in themselves, but they're not a god for the matrix. They actually don't like the matrix either, but unfortunately they don't like their human counterpart, shall we say, or whatever. They don't like their fellow humans. So they kind of defeat, themselves, because, no single human being can defeat the matrix. It's not possible. Because the matrix is everywhere, it's everything, and it has many, many, many minions. So, and also the psychopath is not an advanced human being, because it acts like the matrix wants it to act. It acts like a negative human being, If it knew that it could just be a god in itself, and when I say a god in itself, I don't mean I mean a god in yourself in the sense that you do have creative control over your reality, or you should have, maybe, if it's taken from you and you are not allowed to develop that, yes, of course you're not going to have it and you're not going to be aware of it, but the matrix God is. And when you realise that you're working for something that is negative to yourself, and that you think you're a god because you think you have control over your reality. Most psychopaths think they're God, They think they can do what they like, and they feel all powerful. They don't worry about other people or the matrix or the world. It doesn't matter to them. But, they're, like I say, they're taken advantage of too, just like we all are. They just don't know it, that's all. So temporarily they feel a bit better, but I don't know how well they feel anyway, because, the Matrix, at this present time is not exactly working for any human beings, And it probably never has, but, like I say, we're in the end of a World War III, so it's more desperate and more serious, much more serious than what it's ever been. It's always been out of balance for the human beings, and never been to their benefit, but I would think. But now it's a different ball game, as they say, altogether, because the times can make a difference. And I have heard this, and I think there's much truth to it, in this fantasy way of looking at this Matrix bubble of a matrix, if you want to look at it that way. It's a negative bubble in a space, that we're unaware of. It probably wouldn't be looked well upon, I wouldn't think. But I don't know who's looking or what the source of these things are. I do not think the Matrix is the source, but I think humans are closer to a source. There are many human beings, maybe not so many now, because many have gone. Many human beings die all the time, and they go. And but they, as a collective, they are a source, a creative source. Some might think they are God individually, but I think that would be unlikely. But the thing is that as a collective, they're a different collective to the Matrix collective. The Matrix collective see themselves as a God collective. They see themselves as a spiritual God collective. It's just that they believe in technology, and they have a different way of addressing that spirituality, shall we say? A different way of achieving them being their best. I don't understand this, to be honest. I really don't. So I don't fully know what I'm talking about. I've only picked up some of this stuff very recently, and I kind of get it and kind of don't. But I don't believe it's healthy or beneficial or positive on the Matrix side of things. That's really all I can really say. And it's confusing, because it's confusing for me to realise that things are not as simple as what I thought. But like I say, I'm not supposed to be here to be seeing it from the Matrix point of view. But because I'm that type of person, as I said before, I've always seen 2 points of view, always seen it from both sides of things, always seen both sides of an argument. If I saw 2 people arguing, even when I was younger, I would always see it from both their points of view. I don't know why I did that, but it was actually a good thing, because it does stop you. If you only go on one side of things, you only that's right, you're one-eyed, like my father said, and like the God entity, and like their whole way of looking at things, it's one-eyed. You could say I'm one-eyed, though. I don't know. Maybe some people might think that. That could be true too. Like when you go completely one way. I think that I've tried to look at a couple of sides. I would say that in the past I always did look at, you know, even if I favoured one side, because, you know, obviously, you know, like if you saw two people arguing and one was your best friend, you're naturally going to be very biased towards, you know, your best friend's argument. You know, you're gonna want to believe them. You're not gonna. That's the danger of when you get involved with the wrong people, is that you want to believe the lies, even if something isn't the real picture or the real story. You will want to believe their story. You will want to believe they're correct. You want to believe that they're not the naughty one, shall we say? And yet, you know, you can be wrong about that. Here I am talking all this stuff as though I know philosophy and people and stuff, and I don't really. It's common sense to a large extent. That's why I say common sense is just a basic thing. You don't have to be particularly, you know, you could be at your lowest level. I've seen retarded people, and I've mentioned the video on one that I knew years and years ago, that is subsequently not in the Matrix. And that person was retarded, but at a basic human level, and at a basic personality level, at a basic understanding and compassionate type of level. Compassion and understanding should be combined, I would imagine. You know, this retarded person could get things that others that thought they were more better than this person could not get. You know, this person rarely indulged in the argument. You know, you would see others that you looked up to having a good old argument over nothing. And that's the same thing. It's like that. It's you know, that's just common sense, you see. It's cutting through a lot of the illusion, a lot of the rubbish, shall we say, that we all indulge in and see, and just saying common sense. There's, you know, sometimes it's just what you should know straight away, and what you probably would know if you weren't bombarded by so much of the Matrix rubbish. And this is basically it. You know, you can have so much coming at you that you get sidetracked. You don't see the truth. You don't see the common sense. Even, you know, truth, common sense sometimes. It's not something that you know, like saying, oh, that's the truth. That's, you know, that's something so, you know, that's so mind-blowing. No, the truth, you know, we all want the truth. Sometimes the truth is just looking you right in the face. It's just there. And you don't see it. You don't want to see it. You've been conditioned to not look logically at things, even sometimes, I would say. Or, you know, see, even, you know, we look at, I would say that right in today's times, I would say that we look at things a lot different to how we used to. I've said this before, and that's just a fact. What we once thought was normal is now becoming not so normal, and what we once thought was really strange or abnormal, we're now thinking is fine. So, you know, I'm not quite sure what that says, but it does show that we're in a matrix and that we're continually being shaped according to the matrix's ideas. And little old me and little old you sitting here, our very simple little human thoughts, even if it only be something cutesy and sweet or something ridiculous even, that you'd think is ridiculous. You know, I see the Matrix just grab the simplest, stupidest things, what I would not even consider to be creative, but they know it's human and it's cutesy and it's sweet and it's adorable, and it's going to entice other humans to follow its matrix. Because I would say that if a lot of humans, regardless of how narcissistic or psychopathic they saw that the Matrix was really a cold, stark, technological facade that is like an empty abyss. Abyss, is that the right word? Abyss? An empty, hollow vacuum that humans fill. And that they themselves fill and then consume, if you want to look at it that way, and think it's wonderful. You know, and they actually knew that it's really themselves, in a funny kind of way, that they really should think is wonderful, because if they really saw how cold and empty the technology really is, a bit like me with my Archon Lulu doll. It was a piece of plastic, a cutesy piece of plastic. It was hollow and empty. It didn't have any spirit. It didn't have any life. It didn't have any personality. But I gave it personality. I gave it life. And that's what the Matrix is like. The human gives to the Matrix, just as I gave to the Lulu Archon doll. A lot of the Matrix operatives and beings are like dolls, in the sense that they don't have any, they're empty. And some of us humans have become empty too. The narcissist becomes very empty. That is unfortunate. And, you know, we can become negative and empty. I feel empty a lot of the time. And if you're empty, you know, I can't fill myself up because I'm not a vampire. I can't take from the Matrix to fill myself up. All I can take from the Matrix is its demigods, its disciples that have taken from me and you, and bring it back to where I then worship and idolise them and think that they are human and I am not. You see, it kind of works like that. You know, everything that I think is good about me, I think is 1,000 times more better in them. You know, that seems to be how it works. I guess that's like if you're just an average, you know, citizen or person, and you have a king or queen or a pharaoh, like in Egypt. You know, the pharaoh might be no different to you, really. Might be even less than you. Probably is.